Hello and welcome back. This is Jesse Bergman, lead designer for Punch Entertainment and designer of Battle for Sularia. And up to this point, we have taught you how to play an influence card, establish your sites out onto the battlefield, generate your Solarium, and play combatants. Now we're going to get into the meaty section of Battle for Sularia, which is the attack phase. And in the attack phase, we're going to be able to structure attacks against our opponent and in turn deal damage, as well as potentially lose units from our opponent's defenses as well. So in the case right here, I don't have the entire battlefield laid out as if we were both playing. I've got just a subsection of it, which is basically the sites, two combatants that the Scythian player is controlling right now, as well as my two combatants. I don't have the Jotun sites and tactic and condition cards in the influence row showing here. Normally they would be part of the normal play map, which you were seeing in the other videos, and your opponent would have a mat on his side with the same thing going on. So we have a number of sub-steps in the attack phase, and this is all about us structuring attacks in a way that allows us to gain victory over our opponents. So I have a red condor, which has got 4 attack and 3 defense and flight, and I have a gray harrier, which has got 2 attack and 1 defense and flight. And I've got 2 sites that are targetable. Now, if you remember back in the site phase video, I said that the perimeter alert system, because it was protected by the Sularia mining station, isn't targetable by attacks. Well, flying, which we'll talk about in the flight keyword, it does allow me to target sites in the rear site row. However, in the case of this attack, because of how I want to structure things, I think I'll go ahead and still attack the front site. Now, the very first step of that is me declaring all of my attackers. I have to declare all my attackers at once, and I have to instruct my opponent where I'm attacking. So I do that by rotating both of my combatants 45 degrees to indicate that they're going to become attackers, and I'm going to tell them that I'm targeting the Sularia mining station. Now my opponent can activate that. They can do whatever. Combatants are fluid in Battle for Sularia, meaning that their position on the battlefield doesn't have an impact on gameplay, but sites do. And so because sites have an impact on gameplay, we can't move sites around, but we certainly can move combatants around. So some players, like I've seen them do one of these numbers if they're splitting combatants up, because I could technically declare the Harrier into the Perimeter Alert and the Condor into the Solarian mining station. I could separate them. It just doesn't, it just matters on how I want to handle that. So now once I declare a set of attackers, my opponent can declare defenders. We do have a command window. So after we declare attackers, you'll see there's a command window there. So we can play effects. I can play tactics and condition cards. My opponent can play tactics and condition cards at this moment that could change how things are looking after I've declared attackers. Now, if we both pass on that command window, the next step is to declare those defenders. And so in this case, my opponent is going to take the Spartan Terminator and defend the Red Condor. Now this is a bad move. This is bad for me as a Jotun player, because that Spartan Terminator is a pretty monster dude with 5 attack and 4 defense. Now the Spartan Terminator is the only one allowed to defend these two because he has a keyword called Specialist. We'll talk about Specialist in its own video as well. But ultimately know that the Solarium Excavator, who doesn't have Specialist and doesn't have Flight, can't defend either of these two combatants because they have the keyword Flight. But Spartan Terminator, carrying the keyword Specialist, can. All right. So now, we've declared defenders. We get another command window here. Because the battlefield has changed, we could take this information and react to it in whatever way we feel necessary. And then we go to the keyword value step. Now, the keyword value step is pretty basic. All that's happening here is saying, okay, these guys have become attackers, and because they're attacking the same site, they now have the keyword attacker, and they have the keyword joint strike force. So joint strike force means that the 2 units are working together to systematically eliminate one site on the board. It's anytime 2 or more units attack a single site, those units are in a joint strike force. Those combatants are in a joint strike force. So that keyword value step is just providing those keyword values, because some effects may look for that. They may look for attacker. They may look for the keyword defender. In this case, the Spartan Terminator, also during the keyword value step, gets the keyword defender. So if effects are looking for that, they now trigger. So if the game has got triggered based effects on attackers or defenders, they're going to be applied right here in this spot. After all of that has happened, automatically by the game, we have a final command window here. And in this final command window, this is where I can try to sneak tactics in or conditions in that change the battlefield in some way, and that ultimately maybe tip the scales of the battle back in my favor. So for example, maybe I go, boy, I really don't like how this all just worked out, and I've got a Storm Citadel on my battlefield, and I want to use that Storm Citadel. I could use this command window here to activate the Storm Citadel, and I could tell my opponent I'm putting that on the Red Condor, and my opponent could react now to the new information. We go back and forth on that reaction, what we call actions, until both players have agreed they're done taking actions, which is called passing in succession. And then once that happens, we resolve combat. Now, in this case, I put the +2/+2 from the Storm Citadel on my Red Condor, so I'm going to put a handy-dandy marker on there just to indicate he's got a +2/+2. And now we compare attack and defense values, and I can't do anything to change the scope of this attack any further. So once I've passed on that final command window of the keyword value step, the attack resolves as it sits on the board right now. Now, I don't have any Alpha Strike in this particular example. However, Alpha Strike is a ability that when it's given to a card, we'll talk about it in the Alpha Strike keyword value, it allows that object to deal its damage at this particular point. So it can potentially eliminate regular units or regular combatants or regular sites or whatever it may be before the normal damage step. But let's go ahead and step into the damage step. This is where resolution does all occur simultaneously. However, there is a certain order to processing the damage just to make sure it all happens. So we always start with any combatants that are interacting. So in this case, the Spartan Terminator and the Red Condor are in combat. And because they're in combat, we're going to resolve them first. So in the case of the Red Condor, he's now a 6/5. And while 6 isn't that much, it's 2 more than what the Spartan Terminator can withhold. So we are going to lose the Spartan Terminator, but the damage chain says combatant to site to player. So the 2 damage that the Terminator can't absorb is applied to the Sularia mining station, which now consumes all 6 of the attack value that the Red Condor had. In addition, the Terminator does hit back for 5 with the Red Condor at 5, which means the Red Condor is going to still die in the exchange. So now the final combatant is left to deal damage, and that final combatant is the Grey Harrier. And the Grey Harrier deals 2 damage to the Sularia mining station, which is just enough to eliminate the mining station. If he had done an extra point of damage here, if he'd have done 1 more point, that 1 point of damage would have gone directly to my opponent as health lost. But because he was only able to deal 2 damage, he is unable to deal deal any blast through damage, as we call it. So if, for example, we had an Art of War in the mix, and an Art of War says all Jotun combatants you control get +1/+1, now the Red Condor would have actually hit for... We'll back up and show you how this would work. The Red Condor would actually now hit for, he's got a +1/+1 from the Art of War, and the Grey Harrier has a +1/+1 from the Art of War. Red Condor is now swinging for 7, and the Spartan Terminator can still only absorb 3, so that means 4 points of damage, or excuse me, 4, so only 3 points of damage will make it to the Sularia mining station, or the Sularia mining station would have, boy, got myself confused. Sorry, folks. It's 6, 7 into 4, so 3 damage hits, leaving the Sularia mining station at 1 health, or 1 defense. Now, the Terminator does still hit back for 5, but because of the Art of War, he's now a 6 defense, leaving the Condor at 1, and the Terminator is the only one that will die in the exchange. And the Grey Harrier is now swinging for 3 into a site with 1 defense, and because the site has 1 defense, 2 damage is going to blast through directly to my opponent. My opponent will go from 25 to 23 right there on the spot. Now the site does hit back though, and it hits back for 2. Now because the site hits back for 2, I have to choose as the attacking player, and this is to simulate that I've sent my units in a specific order to that site. And so the unit that takes the damage first is the first unit to arrive at the site. And so in this case, 2 damage back, I can either put 2 damage into the Grey Harrier and lose the Grey Harrier, or I can put 1 damage, which is all the Condor can still absorb, into the Condor, lose the Condor, and keep the Harrier because I leave the Harrier at 1 health because of the Art of War. I'm actually more inclined, obviously, to lose the Grey Harrier because my Red Condor has a bigger attack and defense value as a base. That kind of covers the basics of attack. When the sight is eliminated, it goes to our damage pile. Any cards that were eliminated in combat would be resolved to the damage pile of the player. And then whenever a sight goes into a damage pile, we lose health equal to the cost of the sight as well. So not only did I blast through for 2 damage on my opponent, I also got another 2 points of damage by eliminating the Solarian Mining Station. And that handles the damage step sequence of the attack. There is obviously a ton of interaction that can occur here based on tactics and abilities that are used. We'll talk about using abilities and how to play tactics and condition cards in a coming up video called the Command Window. Until then, just understand that only attack value can actually blast through a sight. So if I'm using a card like a feedback, for example, and a feedback says deal X damage to target combatant or sight where X is equal to half your Solarian generation this turn rounding down, I can feedback a sight, and maybe I can feedback that sight for 5. But if I feedback that sight for 5, I don't get an extra point of blast through. I only get the health loss for the sight itself. So attacking is always the most efficient way to deal as much damage as possible to your opponent. Now, like I said before, when we're declaring attackers, we can always split up our combatants as well. So I'm going to move the Spartan Terminator away to show another attack example here. And I'm going to pull the Storm Citadel out. But I'm going to leave the Art of War because we're going to need the Art of War as a helper here. Art of War says all my combatants get +1/+1. We've talked about that in the last attack. Now, when I go to declare attackers, my opponent has no available defenders. And so when I'm looking at that, I can go, I actually can eliminate both of my opponent's sights this attack, because I can send the Grey Harrier at the perimeter alert, and I can send the Red Condor at the Solarian Mining Station. My opponent can't declare a defender because he doesn't have a defender to defend flyers, and now I can deal some more damage as well as eliminate more sights from his battlefield, which will eliminate more resources. So the Grey Harrier, which is a 3 attack and 2 defense, doesn't do any blast through to the perimeter alert system, but it does do 1 point of damage because of the cost of the sight. The sight hits back for 1, but the Harrier is at 2, so it's at 1 till the end of turn. The Red Condor is swinging as a 5/4. So it does do a point of blast through, so I get an extra point of damage through to my opponent. I do deal 2 additional damage for the cost of the sight, and the sight hits back for 2, leaving the Condor until the end of the turn at 2. So you can see that depending on the battlefield and the circumstances, using your combatants in the most advantageous ways possible is very important. And so therefore, part of the nuance of becoming good at Battle for Solaria is learning how to attack and defend appropriately. If you have any questions about attacking, if you have any questions about defending, please reach out to us, send us a note, either on Board Game Geek, comment below to this video, whatever it may be. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on that. Just remember that from a damage chain perspective, it's always combatant, sight, and player, and that is regardless of sight position. So if I'm only attacking the front sight, and I do blast through damage, the blast through damage does not move to the perimeter alert system. The blast through damage moves to my opponent. I hope that helps, guys. If you have any questions, again, please let us know. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video where we talk about the discard and the end phase all in one shot.